Thank you, everyone, for being here. I had the really great opportunity this morning to get a little tour by Clarissa, so thank you very much, Clarissa, and got to meet Bev and Sandra, the chair of the board. This is the sort of thing that makes us realize why we're doing what we're doing. You know, the idea that community opportunities can be such that we can actually make a real difference in people's lives as they face, you know, really important challenges, having children, trying to figure out how to navigate that as young women. So for me, it's great to be here. Congratulations on the work that you're doing. And I just hope that you're able to continue to support as many young women as possible. I'm here also to talk about what our government announced yesterday, our fall economic statement. We know that part of what we're doing every day is making a difference for Canadians, people that need all sorts of services, young women here who need the services of Youville, of course, but all sorts of Canadians. And yesterday was a day of some very good news. We had the opportunity to talk to Canadians about the kind of work that we've done over the last 2 years and the kind of impact that's made on Canada. We talked about the investments we've made in Canada Child Benefit and the kind of impact that's made on our economy. We were able to talk about the growth rate that we have now, the fastest among G7 countries, the new jobs that we've created over the last couple of years, about over 450,000 new jobs, the kinds of jobs that hopefully the young women that are here at Youville will be able to take up once they graduate from school. We're also able to talk about what we see as the opportunity for us to continue with our investments in Canadian families while being fiscally responsible. We have the opportunity to make investments in continuing to serve Canadian families. So we've said we're going to increase the Canada Child Benefit so that people that have children in their families can actually keep up with the cost of living. We've said that for working people that are struggling to get by, we're going to increase the working income tax benefit, and that's going to make a real difference for people that are starting out with that very first job. We also talked about making sure that we keep tax rates low for small businesses. The fact that we're going to lower small business rates to 9% by January 1st, 2019, which will give small businesses, most of them run by middle-class Canadians and people that are really looking to be successful, give them the opportunity to keep investing in our economy. So yesterday was a very good news story for Canadians. It's a story of how when you invest in people, they actually take the initiative that they need to take for themselves and their families, and what that's done is it's created a better economy. So frankly, it's not that much different than what we're doing here at Youville, knowing that helping people to invest in themselves and invest in figuring out how they can get education is going to make a difference for them over the long term. Donc, je suis très heureux d'être ici avec vous aujourd'hui, et si vous avez quelques questions, je suis disponible. I do want to say, though, that if I had my choice every morning of coming here versus being in the House answering your questions, this is more fun.
About 10 minutes for questions, guys.
Minister Morneau, good morning. David Aiken from Global. Last week, my colleague Veronica Chang was in Waterloo, and she asked you a question about your investments, and you may have misunderstood the question, so I want to ask it again. In the declaration you've made with the Ethics Commissioner, you own or control or have shares in several numbered companies. Almost all of them are Ontario-numbered companies. One of them is an Alberta-numbered company. Could you explain the advantage to having an Alberta-numbered company versus an Ontario-numbered company? I know you set this up many years ago before you were Finance Minister. Why an Alberta-numbered company?
I, as you know, have had the good opportunity in my career to be successful in business. And when I experienced that success, I had the opportunity to actually take my family business public. And in doing that, I worked with people to set up my affairs in a way that made sense. As you probably know, I've always been domiciled in Ontario, so that's been my place of residence. And that structure was merely a legal structure set up for the reasons that made sense at that time. What I have said is that for me, the privilege of doing this job is enormous. The opportunity to have days like yesterday where we can talk about the really good news for Canadians is really, really important. So the importance of that has led me to conclude that I need to go beyond what's been the case for 337 other MPs or what finance ministers have done before, and actually sell all my shares in my company that I had built with my father over 25 years. So that allows me to assure Canadians that I'm not only free of conflicts of interests, but can continue on the work that's so important.
And then a question just on yesterday's announcement. Many of us who've been around a little longer here will remember Finance Minister Martin's speech in the House of Commons, I think 95, when he slew the deficit. And he was very robust, a Liberal finance minister. We're not going to run deficits. And that was mantra pretty much for Liberal finance ministers, Martin, Manley, and your caucus colleague, Goodale. And quite clearly, the current Liberal finance minister has a different view of the absolute value of a balanced budget. It's a different idea now. Could you talk about how you moved away from thinking that a balanced budget is the same important thing that previous Liberal finance ministers thought it was?
What you'll see as a consistent approach of Liberal finance ministers over time is a sense of the real importance of being fiscally responsible. What you'll see is that when you face up to the challenges of your particular era, you need to take the initiative to make sure that you balance the interests of investing in Canadians and the interests of being fiscally responsible. We are in a particularly good position today, a very strong growth rate. We have a very good balance sheet as a country with the lowest amount of debt as a function of our economy among G7 countries. And what we're showing Canadians is that the ability to balance, it's going to allow us to keep investing in Canadians, and it's also going to allow us to keep reducing that debt as a function of our GDP. At the end of the 5-year forecast that we showed yesterday to Canadians, we will have the lowest amount of debt as a function of our economy that we've had since 1977. So that is a consistent theme of Liberal finance ministers, certainly one that I take very seriously.
Bonjour, Mylène Crête de la presse canadienne. Alors, je crois que vous allez rencontrer la commissaire à l'éthique aujourd'hui. Est-ce que vous avez toujours confiance en elle, étant donné que vous avez suivi les conseils qu'elle vous a donnés et que ça vous a mis dans une situation controversée?
Je crois que je vais avoir le rendez-vous demain, actuellement. La chose importante pour moi est de respecter le commissaire. C'est très important. C'est ce que j'ai fait au début. J'ai été clair que c'était important pour moi d'avoir une situation où je n'ai pas de conflit d'intérêts. C'est pour ça que j'ai travaillé avec elle. C'est pour ça que j'ai suivi toutes les recommandations. Et je vais continuer de respecter le commissaire et de travailler avec elle pour être absolument certain que je peux continuer avec le travail très important pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Et ça continue d'être mon but.
Comment vous pouvez toujours avoir confiance en une personne qui vous semble vous avoir donné de mauvais conseils?
À mon avis, elle m'a donné de bons conseils. Elle a trouvé une façon d'être certain que je n'ai pas eu des conflits d'intérêts. Ça, c'était le cas pendant les derniers 2 ans. Mais la chose que je peux dire maintenant, s'il y a la nécessité de faire encore des choses, plus que c'était recommandé, je vais le faire et c'est pour ça que j'ai un rendez-vous demain.
Est-ce que vous pensez que la loi sur l'éthique doit être resserrée pour éviter que quelqu'un d'autre se retrouve dans ce genre de situation-là? Est-ce que ça doit être plus clair?
À mon avis, les règles, la façon d'être certain que personne entre nous, entre les députés, a un conflit, les règles fonctionnent, mais ce qu'on va considérer dans ma situation est comment la population peut être absolument certaine qu'il n'y a aucune possibilité d'un conflit. C'est pour ça que je vais faire plus que les recommandations. C'est pour ça que je vais travailler avec le commissaire d'être certain que la situation que j'ai eue pendant les dernières 2 années, sans conflit, va continuer avec la confiance des Canadiens.
Merci.
Glenn McGregor, CTV. Minister, I understand that you believe you followed the Ethics Commissioner's advice and didn't do anything wrong. But I'm wondering, having been through this over the last couple of weeks, do you now see the problem with Minister of Finance owning through a company publicly traded securities? And do you think maybe that loophole that allowed you to do that, even though you did it in good faith, ought to be changed now?
I'm pleased to say that in our country we have an approach for allowing people who've been successful to come into public life. And for me, that was a huge opportunity to have an impact. Working with the Ethics Commissioner is the way that we make sure that we don't have conflicts. In doing that, I've assured Canadians that I was not in a conflict position. And as I've said, going forward, I will do more than recommended to absolutely assure that. So what I can say is that in my situation, my view is that the conflict of interest screen, which has been in place for the last 2 years, as recommended by the Ethics Commissioner, has worked. I will also make sure that I go further than what she's recommended, and that assures that we will continue to be in a situation where the kind of things we talked about yesterday, the positive economic growth that we've seen, the impact on families, that's the work that we want to do. That's the work that I want to do, and I'll be able to stay focused on that.
The conflict screen refers only to Morneau Chappelle, but for the last 2 years, through this company, you've been able to hold publicly traded securities and possibly trade them. I don't know if you've made any trades in the last 2 years. Could you tell us, in the interest of transparency, what other publicly traded securities did that company in Alberta own, or any of your Ontario companies? What did they own that were publicly traded that you are now putting into the blind trust?
The work that I'll do with the Ethics Commissioner and have continued to do over the last couple of years will ensure that I don't have any conflicts. The Ethics Commissioner's view and the recommendations she made to me was that there should be a conflict of interest screen and that there were no other conflicts of interest screens that were required, as I didn't hold any other shares and didn't do any other trading and wouldn't do any other trading over the course of that time.
Sorry, I'm clear. You're saying you didn't hold any other publicly traded companies other than Morneau Chappelle?
What I've said is that I worked with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that I had a conflict of interest screen in place. That was in place, and that was the only screen that she thought was necessary, because I did not have any other control over any assets that required that screen. I'll go forward to make sure that not only the approach that I've taken, which is the recommendations, stays in place, but that I go further. And that's I believe, what's important at this stage.
Last question, guys. You've been making it seem like your government is largely responsible for the good economic news we saw in your fiscal update yesterday. How much of that is really possible, and how much of that is sort of things that were completely outside your control? How can you take credit for those things?
We know that when we came into office, we were at a 0.9% growth rate. We also know that Canadians were feeling a level of anxiety. Middle-class Canadians were not seeing the benefits of the growth that they wanted to see. We put in place an approach that invested in Canadian families. We helped people through the Canada Child Benefit to have more money in their pockets. We've seen a higher level of consumer confidence over the last couple of years. We've seen significant growth in the economy, greater than anyone expected. What we know now is that the actions we took, the confidence we placed in Canadians, has resulted in an outcome that's better than expected, allows us to continue to take that approach and continue to invest in Canadian families while being fiscally responsible.
And these stories recently about your personal assets have sort of reminded Canadians what we all knew in the beginning, is that you're a millionaire. And I was wondering whether you think, especially in recent days, that has hurt your credibility as a finance minister who's working for the middle class.
You know, I came into office focused on the challenges that I've seen through my business career. I saw an increase in anxiety among people. I saw an increase in financial anxiety. I saw an increase in mental health challenges. That was what propelled me to get into public office, to have an impact on that. So I think it's well understood by people who look towards people like me that we don't come into office for personal gain. We come into office to make an impact on our country. That's certainly my motivation, and I couldn't be more pleased that yesterday we were able to demonstrate that the kind of things that we've done that have helped Canadian families are having a positive impact on them and on our economy.
Sorry if you've been asked this, but just wanted to ask directly. I was distracted by all these cute little kids. But are you meeting with the Ethics Commissioner today, and are you hoping that this sort of regains some confidence in your role as Finance Minister?
In fact, I'm meeting with her tomorrow, and the reason I'm doing that is because I asked her to meet with me, because I told her that I wanted to go beyond the recommendations that she'd given me, and that's what I'm going to be working to do with her tomorrow.
Thanks a lot, guys.